The air hung thick and heavy, a humid blanket woven with the scent of decaying vegetation and the briny tang of the bayou. Even before dawn, the heat pressed down, promising another sweltering Louisiana day. I pushed open the squeaking back door of Dubois Seafood, the rusted hinges protesting with a mournful groan that echoed my own weariness. Something was off. A cloying sweetness, unnatural and sickly, mingled with the familiar smells of shrimp and brine. I grabbed a flashlight from the cluttered workbench, its beam cutting through the pre-dawn gloom. My boots sank slightly into the mud as I circled the back of the plant, the beam dancing across the murky water that lapped against the pilings. That's when I saw them. Dead fish, bellies bloated and shimmering with an oily sheen, bobbed listlessly near the surface. Further out, iridescent slicks swirled on the water, catching the pale light like spilled rainbows. But these weren't rainbows of hope, they were harbingers of something rotten. A knot tightened in my stomach. This wasn't natural. This wasn't just the ebb and flow of the bayou's life cycle. This was something else, something sinister. I knelt, scooping up a handful of the viscous water. It stung my skin, leaving a greasy residue and a metallic taste in the back of my throat. Chemicals. Illegal dumping. My blood ran cold. Dubois Seafood was already struggling, barely staying afloat in these tough economic times. If word got out about this contamination, it would be the final nail in the coffin, not just for my business, but for the whole town. Fishing was the lifeblood of this community. Poison the water, and you poison everything. It was more than just about my livelihood. Later that morning, Mayor Bergeron's black sedan pulled up to the front of the plant. He emerged, all smiles and polished shoes, a stark contrast to the grimy reality of my world. "Evie, darling," he boomed, his voice a practiced blend of charm and authority. "Heard you had a little incident out back. Nothing to worry your pretty little head about." He offered me a deal couched in the language of opportunity, a lucrative contract to supply seafood for a new casino development just outside of town, enough to set Dubois Seafood up for years. All I had to do was forget about the dead fish and the strange chemicals. My jaw tightened. He thought he could buy me off. He thought I'd sell out my community for a few dollars. "Thank you, Mayor," I said, my voice deceptively sweet. "But I think I'll pass." His smile faltered, the mask of geniality slipping to reveal the cold, calculating man beneath. "You sure about that, Evie? This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." "I'm sure," I replied, meeting his gaze head-on. "Some things are worth more than money." He didn't say another word, just turned on his heel and strode back to his car, the silence heavy with unspoken threats. As his car disappeared down the dusty road, I knew a fight was brewing. A fight against a powerful man, a fight against corruption, and a fight to save the only home I'd ever known. I walked back to the murky waters behind my plant, the setting sun casting long, ominous shadows. The sickly sweet smell still hung in the air, a constant reminder of the danger lurking beneath the surface. I had to find out who was doing this, and I had to stop them before it was too late. My gaze drifted towards the horizon, where the bayou met the sky, a silent vow forming on my lips to protect the soul of this place. The next few days were a slow-motion train wreck. First, the refrigeration unit in one of my delivery trucks sputtered and died, spoiling a whole shipment of shrimp. Then the conveyor belt in the processing plant jammed, mangling crab legs and halting production for hours. Each incident felt less like bad luck and more like a deliberate strike, but the whispers were worse. They started subtly, a cancelled order here, a hushed conversation there. Then they grew louder, bolder. Rumors began circulating about unsanitary conditions at the plant, whispers of tainted seafood and ignored health codes. Lies, vicious, calculated lies. Customers, some of whom had been buying from my family for generations, started pulling their orders. My margins were already razor thin. These cancellations threatened to bleed me dry. I knew who was behind it, or at least I had a damn good idea. Bergeron. He wanted me gone, and he was using every dirty trick in the book to make it happen. I found Sheriff Landry down at the docks, leaning against his patrol car, watching the shrimp boats come in. The salty air usually calmed me, but today my nerves were frayed. "Bo, we need to talk," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. He straightened up, a flicker of something, guilt, crossing his face. "Evie, what's wrong?" "What's wrong?" "My business is being sabotaged, Bo. My customers are being scared off with lies, and you're standing here watching boats." He sighed, running a hand through his thinning hair. "Evie, I've heard the rumors. I'll look into it, but you know how these things are, hard to prove. Prove? A refrigeration unit doesn't just die, Beau. A conveyor belt doesn't spontaneously combust. And these rumors? They're coming from Bergeron, and you know it. His jaw tightened. I can't just accuse the mayor without evidence, Evie. You know that. Evidence? He's practically wearing a sign that says I'm corrupt. Are you really going to stand by and let him destroy everything my father built? I could hear the desperation creeping into my voice. He looked away, his gaze drifting out to the bayou. I'm doing what I can, Evie. You know I am. His voice lacked conviction. No, Beau, I don't think I do. I think you're looking the other way, hoping it'll all just go away. I turned and walked away, the disappointment a heavy weight in my chest. I needed help and I wasn't going to get it from him. That evening, I drove out to Maman Sylvie's place, a small, weathered cabin nestled deep in the swamp. Spanish moss hung heavy from the cypress trees, and the air hummed with the sound of crickets and frogs. Maman Sylvie was sitting on her porch, rocking gently in her chair, a string of beads clicking softly in her hand. "Evangeline," she said, her voice a low, soothing rumble. "I felt you coming." I sat down on the steps beside her, the weight of the past few days pressing down on me. "Maman Sylvie, things are bad. Bergeron is trying to ruin me." She nodded slowly. "I know. The shadows are growing, child. They whisper in the wind. They stir the waters." "Shadows? What do you mean?" "There are forces at work here, Evangeline, that you don't understand. Dark things, old things. They feed on fear and greed. But what can I do? The sheriff won't help. I'm losing everything." Maman Sylvie took my hand, her fingers gnarled and strong. "You are not alone, child. You have the strength of your ancestors in your blood, but you must be careful. The shadows are drawn to your light." Her words were cryptic, unsettling, but in the deepening gloom of the bayou, they offered a sliver of hope. I wasn't sure what kind of fight I was in for, but I knew I couldn't back down. The whispers were getting louder, the darkness closing in, and I had a feeling things were about to get a whole lot worse. The news hit me like a physical blow. Old man Thibodeau, bless his soul, found face down in the bayou. Landry called it an accident, tangled in his nets, probably a heart attack. But Thibodeau was strong as an ox, knew those waters like the back of his hand. And he'd been one of the few willing to testify about the dead fish, the strange smells, the unnatural sheen on the water. He'd been helping me. Doubt gnawed at me, a cold, insistent serpent in my gut. I visited Maman Sylvie. She just shook her head, her eyes clouded with a knowing sadness. "The greed of men," she rasped. "It poisons everything it touches." I spent the next day sifting through Thibodeau's meager belongings, a desperate hunt for something, anything, that could prove what I already suspected. His shack was a testament to a life lived close to the bone, fishing rods meticulously maintained, patched nets hanging from the rafters, a small worn Bible on his bedside table. Then, tucked away in a rusty coffee tin, I found it. A set of meticulously kept ledgers, detailing not only his own catches, but also observations about barges he'd seen entering the bayou late at night, barges belonging to Bergeron's company. And, crucially, copies of invoices, payments made to Bergeron's construction firm from shell corporations registered out of state. The connection was undeniable. Bergeron was dumping toxic waste, and Thibodeau had the proof. Fear warred with a burning rage. I knew what I had to do. It was about the soul of our community, about the land itself, not just my business. I printed copies of the documents, my hands shaking, and drafted a statement for the press, laying out everything I knew, everything I suspected. Exposing Bergeron would be like kicking a hornet's nest. He had the money, the power, the sheriff in his pocket. He'd come after me, that was certain. Landry found me at the plant, the setting sun painting the bayou in shades of blood orange. He looked tired, defeated. "Evie," he said, his voice low, "you need to let this go. Let it go. Beau, they killed Thibodeau. They're poisoning our home." He sighed, running a hand through his thinning hair. "I know, Evie, I know. But Bergeron, he's got everyone scared. He's got influence." "Influence? Or dirt on you too, Beau?" I challenged, the words laced with hurt. He flinched. "That's not fair, Evie. Isn't it? You swore an oath to protect this community. Are you going to stand by and watch him destroy it?" He looked away, his silence a damning indictment. "Just be careful, Evie, please." His warning was hollow, useless. I was alone in this. As Landry turned to leave, I knew he was facing a choice. He could continue to turn a blind eye, complicit in Bergeron's crimes, or he could finally stand up for what was right. But either way, my course was set. I was going to expose Bergeron, no matter the cost. I'd already emailed the documents and my statement to a reporter in New Orleans, a woman I'd spoken to before, who had a reputation for digging deep and not backing down. The story would break tomorrow morning. I was a dead woman walking, maybe, but at least I'd die fighting. The dawn broke grey and heavy, mirroring the knot of dread tightening in my stomach. I barely touched my coffee, the metallic tang of fear coating my tongue. By now, the reporter in New Orleans would have received the evidence. The story was out there, a digital Pandora's box unleashed upon Bergeron and his empire. The first sign was the phone. It started ringing incessantly, each shrill ring a hammer blow against my resolve. I ignored it, focusing on securing the plant, double-checking the locks, feeling like a cornered animal. Then came the cars, black SUVs with tinted windows, crawling along the dirt road like predatory beetles, Bergeron's goons. They didn't bother with subtlety. They smashed through the gates, tires spitting gravel, and swarmed the plant. I met them at the main entrance, a shotgun my only shield. "Get off my property, Bergeron," I yelled, my voice trembling but firm. Bergeron emerged from the lead SUV, a sneer twisting his lips. Evie, always the stubborn one. "You should have listened. Now you're going to regret this." Before he could give the order, a siren wailed in the distance, growing louder with each passing second. Sheriff Landry's cruiser screeched to a halt, blocking the road. He stepped out, his face grim, his hand resting on his holster. "Tommy," Landry said, his voice low and dangerous. "Stand down, now." Bergeron's face contorted with rage. "Bo, you wouldn't." "I'm done turning a blind eye, Tommy. This ends here." The standoff felt like an eternity, the air thick with unspoken threats. Then the cavalry arrived. A fleet of black sedans emblazoned with the insignia of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency descended upon the scene. Federal agents, grim-faced and efficient, moved with practiced precision, securing the area and placing Bergeron and his men under arrest. As they led Bergeron away in handcuffs, he locked eyes with me, his gaze burning with hatred. "This isn't over, Evie," he snarled. "Yes, it is, Tommy," I replied, my voice clear and strong. "It's over." The following days were a whirlwind. The story exploded across national news, exposing Bergeron's crimes and the devastating impact on the Bayou. The federal investigation widened, uncovering a network of corruption that reached far beyond our small town. Landry, finally free from Bergeron's grip, worked tirelessly to assist the investigation, providing crucial information and evidence. He visited me at the plant, his eyes filled with remorse. "I should have done this a long time ago, Evie." "I'm sorry." "It's okay, Bo," I said, placing a hand on his arm. "You did the right thing in the end, that's what matters." Slowly, painstakingly, the bayou began to heal. The toxic waste was removed, the water began to clear, and the fish started to return. The community, once fractured by fear and corruption, began to rebuild, united by a shared sense of hope. Maman Sylvie visited me, her eyes twinkling with ancient wisdom. "You have done well, Evangeline," she said. "You have awakened the spirit of the bayou." I looked out over the shimmering water, the sun setting, painting the sky in hues of orange and gold. The fight had been long and hard, but it had been worth it. The shadows had been unveiled, the truth had been revealed, and the bayou, my home, was finally free. The relief washed over me, a profound sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't just a victory for me, but for everyone who called this place home. And as I stood there watching the sunset, I knew that even though scars remained, the healing had truly begun.